Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Happy Friday.
It's Friday. It's Easter weekend, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We were, was it last night or was it this morning that got included in a stream of text because we didn't plan anything to do for our family. I'm trying to get you centered, honey, because people that want to watch on. Yeah, and you're welcome. They're like, okay, so what's on the docket for Easter? And I'm like, I don't know.
They're maybe used to us hosting.
They are, because we've got just a really lovely place. But I was like, you know what, guys, not this time. We're not hosting this time.
We'll meet you at the Waffle House.
Well, there's a couple of good places where you can go get a good Easter brunch or something. So that was the thread. It was really not about Easter itself, but about brunch. And we host here an awful lot. And not that our guests exhausted me or anything or us. I just was like, we've been doing that all week long. And I think that, hey guys,
we're gonna have chill weekend.
I raised my kids to, you kind of get the opportunity to go and host yourself. So, and have everybody over. Facebook user, good morning and happy Easter. I just don't know who that is.
Facebook user. Yeah, you didn't register your name with StreamYard, so now we just have to guess. We'll spend all day wondering.
So now there's a Facebook user over there fumbling. It's like, how do I do that?
How do I tell them?
Exactly. Usually in the actual stream, a little bit further on in the comments is a link that gives you permission.
Right. Yeah, you can get in there and do that.
Adrian.
It's Adrian. Hey, Adrian, thanks for the tip on the steakhouse. I saw your post about the steakhouse in Vegas. I got to check that out.
Yeah.
So that looks great. So,
absolutely.
Shall we get to our stuff? We got a couple of updates, and we still have some stuff on the horizon. I don't even have the dates on our dealer roundup. You got that handy?
Yeah.
So we've also got a couple of the V8 groups for next month on the calendar. Still need to firm up one more, I think. But just had another meeting last night, the final meeting of the month. We're trying to do those meetings on the second, third week of the month, but with those groups that aren't full, I push those to the end of the month to give us more time to add some dealers. So if you have an interest in a V8 group, reach out to me, and we got spots for, regardless of dealership size, we got a spot for you.
All right, so I'm looking for really quick. I should know this by heart. It's April 18th. So it's a Thursday, and we're going to start an hour later. Last time we started our time 7 a.m., but we're going to start 8 a.m. So that would be 10 Eastern. And Brent Carmichael is going to be co-hosting that entire thing too. So it will be a great conversation. I think that we're going to talk. We've got some topics already, and are working on getting all of that set up in BHPHNationTV.com and Eventbrite and all of that. So access to tickets will be forthcoming.
Very good.
And then we will be down at the Neo User Summit at the end of next month. And so those of you who are attending Buy Here Pay Here United, it's like the first full day before they do the opening cocktail hour for Buy Here Pay Here United. So if you're coming to that and would like to go to the User Summit as well, just book your tickets a little bit different, because you need to register, but I don't believe that there's any charge for tickets to go to the User Summit.
Okay.
So what else? Is that it? I
can't think of a thing. So we're good to move into it.
It's Friday.
Yeah.
It's Friday. So, we always have a really good time when we do hot topics. I should have some sound effect. Hot topics, something like that. So that people are like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Just capture that little audio clip for next time.
Exactly. So, a lot of things are always happening in Facebook land. And there's a couple of things that, as we were talking, that just kind of made sense to talk about. So I don't know where you want to start, honey.
Yeah, I can list some of the things that I saw, amongst the threads. There's several, of the buzz topics, but, this one about capital and private money, that's still kind of, especially actually, capitalization.
Yeah, that's actually going to be something around that is going to be one of the topics for the dealer roundup too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then cost of car, which is really ends up being about business model. There was a lot of grumbling about cost of car, especially these older high mile cars. And, it's just interesting to see the different business models across our segment. And, it really goes to business model. And I look forward to one of the things we will continue to do at the morning show is flesh that out, bring people who are in different business models and share why they chose that particular model. And sometimes it's capital driven, right?
Yeah.
They just don't have enough access to capital. So they have to stay where they have to stay budget wise.
Yeah. And everyone has their own reason. And that's one of the beautiful things about this industry is that it's just like, well, what do you want?
Yeah. And what's your tolerance for risk?
So
there's also that
because
element
that also
always
comes in there, like what kind of down payments based on the cost of car, what kind of, whatever that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So.
But my favorite topic was because it kind of goes to the heart of many of the things that, happen in our world in the trenches of talking about underwriting and some of these things. So this one was really the subject is what I would call radius. People were talking about how do you feel about financing customers that live very far away?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to read you some of the comments from the thread. There are tons.
Yeah. There were a lot of people that was like this many hours away or this many miles away. And so, I think that for most of us, we're familiar. The most everybody feels comfortable with like a 30 to 50 mile radius.
Right.
Most everybody feels comfortable. Why do they feel comfortable?
Yeah, well, you'd have to ask them, but what we see in the threads is it varies based on a lot of things. And I would say that for the most part, people are, one, nervous about financing somebody that lives very far away because they feel like they have passed by lots of other dealerships to come to do business with them. And what does that suggest?
That's an interesting question because I do want to flesh that out just a little bit too. But
we will. That's what we're here to do. So we can talk about that. And there are quite a few comments in the thread, including several dealers that we know. And, I have to say a lot of them were affirmative in terms of customer service, or they were positive in that we really want our customers to live fairly close because we know that we need to be able to support them. And this means through warranties or whatever else, so if they're very far away, that becomes difficult. Obviously, amongst the other considerations are when they're very far away, it gets expensive to repossess and to otherwise manage the account. And there was one repo agent that chimed in and said, a lot of the customers that we repo are outside of that radius, and I think they just think we won't come that far. And so, that's but others have even said, that the reason they don't, they go past all these other dealerships to come do business, with us or try to do business with us as a dealer is because they have burned too many bridges and they can't get approved at a lot of these places, which
Can we start there?
Actually happens. Sure.
Well, okay. And it's, and I get that, but, is that an assumption or is that, could that just be could that just be an assumption that we have that they are being told no, and then they come to us? Like as far as like the majority, 90% of the people that land here that live that far away are coming only because they have been told no at other places. And then that opens a whole nother, like why were they told no? But I mean, I get that. If that's the case, then it's just like criminy.
You mean it's not just because my program as a dealer is that attractive that I'm pulling people, from
those
that
of you
away.
Who don't know, this means spot on.
This
spot
means
on.
Ding, ding,
ding,
ding,
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Could it be that? I mean, and are we measuring to find out if it is that? How did you hear about us? What did you, that kind of thing. But it's an interesting question because one thing that I notice, and I'm outside of buy here, pay here, very much so, is that there, you have one or two that you might have experienced or that you have, you've heard about. And there's dealers out there that and respect that are like, don't do it. This is going to be a burn. And so it really makes me wonder, has this been, one, measured? And two, I mean, when you say measured, it's like, do we know that's the reason why?
Yeah, we don't know.
Do we know that's the reason why?
They don't really know.
Yeah.
And they can ask the customer, but they're not going to, the customer's not going to say, I'm coming to you because nobody else will finance me.
But okay, so if someone lands on your lot, and a lot of dealers run a credit report to some portion. It's not, the decision's not based on past credit, but it may be based on current things. And and it's kind of, we've encouraged our dealers to do a truth check. And and so if it's that they're passing other people because they keep being told no, why would they be told no? So is it past repos or whatever? Well, those things will show up on a credit pull. If they've been repoed before, it will show up.
Not always. Not all the buy here, pay here people report to credit.
Oh, okay.
So you can't always see that. And so this is part of why dealers are uncomfortable. So it's like, only a portion of dealers in buy here, pay here are pushing to credit. So it's like, there's always going to be that element, but I think it's really it's really the most fascinating piece of this to me as a former dealer is like how much of the underwriting that we do, because obviously the CFPB and other agencies are looking at how we underwrite and do our financing. And this part is just so fascinating to me because it really touches on the edge of legal. It's like, what's legal for us to do in terms of underwriting, and what's just good business practices? Like, I don't know that we're ever going to have the regulatory folks understand the elements of the business and so, we can try to talk to them. But
if it is a determining factor for underwriting, is that also something that you have to declare?
No, you don't have to declare your underwriting externally. You don't have to declare how you underwrite. So you have your own checklist of what you do. And, if it ever got called into question, you might be subpoenaed and have to show something, but otherwise, no, you don't have to share what your underwriting guidelines are. But even if you did, this starts to fall into the area of subjectivity. Now, you can look and see and verify the customer gives you an address and you can Google map it. And if it's, 47 miles away and that's outside your radius, then that's a more objective kind of thing to be able to put in your own internal policy about financing.
Now, if you do have an internal policy about radius, is there at any point where someone that you are financing to that is disclosed, that we, hey, like for instance, sometimes we see that someone will buy a car and then they immediately move, or that they've used a different address. Is that something that you would need to put in your contract that says, hey, we reserve the right to repo if we find that the car, that you've moved outside of this kind of radius?
So this is, and again, Jim and Michelle Rhoads are not attorneys. We cannot offer legal advice.
I know a few attorneys that might just be like, what are they going to say?
Yeah. So, we're obviously just speaking. We're just chatting here. We're not offering legal advice. So I think the element here that comes into question for me is something that many years ago, and I think I was in a session with an attorney where I first heard the phrase, but it's like, this kind of falls into the category of insecurity. So we're confusing some things because we're starting to talk about after delivery, which is enforcement of the contract versus underwriting on the front end. So just quickly to answer your question, if the customer shared one thing and then later they're doing something else, that's a question of enforcement. Like, what are you going to do? What are your rules? What is your justification? Repossession is a serious matter. If you're going to repossess somebody, you need to probably have some strong leg to stand on, especially if the count is current. Like accounts past due, that's pretty cut and dried in most states. I think in most situations, if accounts past due, and it's especially if it's as delinquent as it's ever been, then you're probably in pretty safe waters.
And that's something that I heard an awful lot as I was reading through the comments from people that have. It's like, oh, they if they've passed your underwriting process, that there are dealers out there. It's like, yeah, we've had great experience with that. And, every once in a while you might have a repo, but that happens with anybody. I mean, you run as you run a pretty decent risk for someone buying the car. And then it's like, hey, I can't find a job in this town. And so they move a state over or something. I mean, that's part of the thing, but there are those that have had really good success. And then when I read through, there are those that don't talk about their failure except in just a bulk, a bulk statement. And so just kind of makes me question where that idea is coming from.
Yeah. So let's go back to the underwriting side and sort of the approval of the radius, because that's kind of, where we started here. And I want to read something. I reached out to Keith Thacker this morning by text and made sure he was okay with me sharing his name about his comments. He said, we really don't like to finance outside a certain radius. And here are the main reasons. Number one, the loans do not perform as well when you're hours away from the car customer, at least in our case, right? And then the other one, he says something in here that I just love. That's part of the reason I asked for permission to share it. He says, it's hard to help our customers when they are that far away. Subprime customers do subprime things. And when the keys are lost, or they have a flat they can't change, distance takes a small issue and turns it into a major ordeal logistically. I get that. So, again, it's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. Is the CFPB ever going to understand that? Probably not. So it's kind of the one, CFPB.
I'm the one that has problems with acronyms.
It doesn't sound right this morning.
I don't think you had enough coffee.
Anyway, I guess we need more caffeine. But I particularly love Keith's phrase about subprime customers do subprime things. And so, what he means is, flat tires, lost keys. I mean, I guess, gosh, if lost keys are a thing, then you and I are subprime too. But it's like, it's like, if it's about lost keys,
That reminds me, our guests too. It's like we once lost the keys.
Yeah.
And it took 3 months to get it back, get a key back. So
it's like, it's just one of those things where, when you because we know that in our business, when you have a 3-year relationship with your customer, I always just use that generally, you have an extended relationship with your customer, then in order for that customer to be successful, there are going to be times that they're going to need a little hand holding. And so sometimes doing that from a distance is difficult. And if you're a dealer with a warranty, you like to bring those cars back into your own shop for your warranty for multiple reasons, which are financial, and we can cover those on another day. But dealers like to bring their own, their repairs back into their own shop, especially when they've got a warranty in the picture. So that's understandable. And that's difficult if a customer lives, 75, 100 miles away. So, obviously people move. And in my way of thinking about it, they should be entitled to move if their life changes and they're current on their account, and they ought to be able to move. And so this is why, this stuff comes into play, though, is when you're approving on the front end, how much can you factor into radius, and how much do your underwriting softwares out there really capture radius information and
we're not sure if that's even factored in the scoring. And
but I can promise you it's a very real thing for these dealers as the thread supports. You go and look and you can see different ideas. For the most part, we had one dealer say, I finance a lot of customers a long way away. And I can say, being familiar with that operation, knowing their business model, they're kind of an exception. Their model's different. Maybe in 10 years it won't be, but right now it's kind of a departure from the typical business model, and it's working for them. Most dealers are uncomfortable, as the thread kind of supports us. They're cautious at a minimum. Some just simply don't do it. They don't feel like they can financially afford to do it. And so it just, we recommend to dealers for all the reasons that it's mostly about customer support. That we recommend that dealers keep, typically finance customers who live close by.
Yes.
Whatever that number is.
And so let's say, I'm going to give you you have your own shop, and you like to keep everybody within a 50-mile radius, let's say. Okay. And let's say someone comes in that lives 100 miles away. That's a repeat customer. What do you do? They paid on time. They live 100 miles away.
They now live 100 miles away? Oh, I'm probably a repeat customer. I'm probably going to make an exception.
What if it's a referral?
The referral wouldn't add enough strength for me. That's another important conversation. In fact, if we'll make a note about it, I don't know if we have enough data, but my anecdotal experience says that a referred customer doesn't necessarily perform any better than anybody else.
Okay, I'm writing it down. Referrals doesn't make a good customer.
It's just a question. Like I think it'd be a fun thread to take to social media, but it's like I don't know that anybody's got any real hard data. I've never heard anybody really measure that, effectively. But in my experience, it's just like it doesn't. So I think I wouldn't treat that one any differently.
What about if they came in and they said, "We've just heard really good things about you"? I mean, not necessarily a direct referral, but it's just we've.
And they live a distance.
Like I was in town and I saw you guys, and because I had to come into town for X, and I saw y'all, and I thought, okay, this looks like the type of dealership that I'd want to work with.
I can tell you what I would say, and this is again I'm not suggesting this because legally I'm not up to speed on any kind of compliance stuff, but I know that if I were the dealer or the general manager having that conversation with a customer, I would just be sitting down with them and saying, look, we're happy to help. We don't typically finance customers that are that far away, but we're okay with looking at the thing and making an exception. Just understand we probably can't be as flexible, in terms of, often we try to be flexible with down payment, but if you live very far away, we're probably not going to be able to be as flexible. So you're probably going to need to put the suggested down payment, those kind of things.
And do you think like having the conversation and it's going to be harder for us to support if something comes up?
Yeah.
And so I just want you to be aware of that it's going to be harder for us to support you.
And often at the point of closing, like this is another area, and that's another conversation for us, Michelle, is coming back to closing, is talking about how to do the closing. Because I personally, in those situations, would take almost what I would describe as, and sometimes use the phrase with my management team, is like, we kind of have a zero tolerance approach when those customers are outside a radius. Again, the flexibility. I'm trying to be flexible in underwriting. I'm going to try to help, but typically when you live very far away, I can't be very flexible in underwriting. And I also don't expect to be flexible in the collection side. If you live very far away, just understand so this is part that I would say internally, I don't think I would say this exact phrase to a customer, but it's sort of, if we ever have to repossess the car at that radius, at that distance, we're only doing it once. So, it's like, this is another interesting things about repo redemptions. Like what can we do? What should we do in a repo redemption? Well, if we're the dealer, we're the creditor, it's really up to us. And my approach would be, it's up to the customer to satisfy, that I should allow them to have the car back, to redeem the car. So kind of getting off track there, but I'm just thinking these are all the elements that dealers consider when making that decision on the front end.
What are the problems that rise in the chance that's gonna happen, and you're gonna have some problems. So yes, you take those things into consideration, but I don't think that you, I lean on you, subject matter expert, all of that I'm kind of getting that doesn't necessarily have to be a hot and hard no.
Right. Yeah. I think it's up to every dealer and their business model. And again, their tolerance for risk. But I think what we're talking about here is, I think the most interesting element is just the subjectivity. It's like in underwriting, where do we need to be objective? Where do we need to be subjective? And there's great, very sophisticated underwriting tools out there that help us a lot. We can lean on those scores. My experience with those is they're not perfect. There's other factors to consider, and they come up again and again. You can find them, people talking about the stuff on Facebook, but it's like the question really is the subjectivity element in underwriting. We did a podcast with Brent Carmichael and Steve Levine more than a year ago, and touched on some of these things, but you can never really get to all the stuff. It's like, I'll give you an example. One of the things I always think about is just something interesting, and maybe take it out of the car business for just a minute. If you're a property owner and renting, some of your rental properties, and you have somebody come to apply for property and you have 3 applicants, but one of them, you see that their car is just filthy. They have kind of destroyed their car. Should you factor that into your decision in renting your property? Well, we bring that back over to the buy here, pay here side. It's like, it's not in our underwriting scoring, is it? Not anywhere on our underwriting score sheet.
That's a subjective, very subjective.
For me today, it's a question. I'm not suggesting that anybody go out there and adjust their underwriting according to that idea, but I'm simply suggesting it's among the things that we, it's our collateral. It's our decision. And so it's not like I'm a lender and I'm loaning money and yes, I have the collateral, but it's kind of property that I never see. I'm just a lender. And obviously that decision is based heavily on credit.
Yeah.
In this case, it's clearly in this unbankable segment. And so this is where I would always try to be a voice. And I've written articles around this stuff. It's like, I feel like these regulatory agencies need to recognize this segment is just different. It's just different. It's, you're not talking about, you can't really apply prime sort of logic to the underwriting here. And no, I'm not advocating for, wide open underwriting and no regulation. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying you got to be careful about how you apply the rules here, because I feel like dealers in this space need and deserve to have some degree of flexibility and subjectivity. I'll just say it like as a former dealer, that's part of the attraction of Buy Here, Pay Here. It's part of how you can help people. You can make exceptions if they make sense for you and they make sense for the customer, then I feel like we ought to be able to make exceptions, and bring a little subjectivity.
And I think it also, one of those factors in there is, what does your underwriting look like? Because we hear all the time, it's like, if they can fog a mirror, they get a car. Well, that's obviously setting you up for a lot of potential. It's like you're going to get everybody. And
that same thread that I was referring to just about the radius, people were talking about that sort of thing. It's like the headache factor. Like, yes, you can do those high mile cars, or yes, you can do the low down payment deals, right? Everybody's business model. Some dealers have moved away from that because of the headache factor.
Yeah.
I think, with time, we should be able to prove that that's real. Can we really show that the cost of car with the increasing cost of car and the increasing down payment, that our expenditure on aspirin went down? Can we show that on a chart?
And it's so interesting, because one of the things, like I said, outsider kind of looking in, is that you see a lot of belief systems that it's like, it's backed up with what? It's just like, well, because this is just the way it is. And I remember last year we had Jack Carter on the show, where he had a specific belief, and I can't remember what exactly the subject was, but he had his very specific belief structure. Then he started running the numbers, and he's like, my belief structure does not fit what is actually happening.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, do we have these belief structures because we personally have experienced the thing, or that we can draw upon someone else's personal experience and there's data behind it? Or is this just a belief structure that, because it's an opinion that's been out there, it's based on an opinion?
Yeah.
Is it based on an opinion, or is it based on opinion? Is it based on a few things that have happened? Because we all know that there are bad apples in the cart, or in the barrel, every once in a while, and it's like it's a small segment. And is it that those that live far away are always the ones that have the problem, or that those bad apples, or what?
Michelle, you're new to this business. You don't realize that most of the strategies that dealers develop are because of some guy named Wally at the car auction who told him, and this guy says he's been very successful in Buy Here, Pay Here. So that's where I don't know.
Anecdotal. I don't know. And it's, and the more we hear about like some of the different groups of dealers and things, and you talk to, you talk to other dealers that have been involved in different groups of dealers where you're getting together and you're talking about the stuff, is it's like, it's sometimes hard to weed through the BS and to weed through this is the what is. And, and, we hear stories all the time about, this is what was said, this is what was said, this is what was said, and then their house of cards collapsed. All of the stuff that they said no longer has any merit but how many people change their business model because of something someone said?
Yeah. That's, we have limited information. Now, the go-to place, thanks to Tommy Brandis, is BHPH Success. That's where you go to get your information. So, but there is a lot of learning.
It's actually a great meeting
There's
place.
There's a lot of learning that happens in there, but it's still yet an example of it's anecdotal. This is my thread. It's not based on data. This has been my experience, right? And so this has been my experience. But you can still look at the collective thing, and if you're brand new to the industry, you can see why people form these opinions and beliefs that they do. And, we see it obviously in our V8 groups. You can have 8 dealers on the screen, and you can have, 4 or 5 different approaches to the same thing. So it's like, it just varies.
And they've all worked for them.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. But it's just, I think that because, Jim is so data driven, analytics, all of that. It's like, is this just an opinion or is this based on data? Sure. Is it true? It's like, is it true? Is it really, really true? Is it really, really, really true?
I always stop at 2.
Yeah. But, sometimes it was like, maybe not. Yeah. Or, yep. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
I think we can wrap up there. I think we got plenty of fun stuff, as you heard. There's stuff we can bring back to future conversations around this, but look for me to continue to dig into this, because I think the whole element of subjectivity and underwriting is just huge. We need to not pretend that it's not there. Let's get it out there. Let's talk about it. Find out what we can do, what we're allowed to do. We're all doing it anyway. It's like what should we be allowed to do, and let's speak freely, about what level
and not everybody has the same appetite for risk.
Sure.
And others are like, it's paid off. And I exercise more towards this. Might be some risk, but it's like, well, with conversations we've had just recently, it's like, does moving the needle a little bit, you might have a few more of the bad things, but think about all the good things that can happen. And from that batch of, you're moving your scoring to, I'm going to start to include this group of people. And it's like, start measuring.
We've got some very real case studies that we can point to. And when I say case studies, I mean years of data to show. And we've got one client in particular who's been tightening up their underwriting, using a scoring model, taking a certain applicant, certain amount of down payment. They've been tightening it up, and that's their choice. They spend more money to reach those applicants, and they're able to, get a volume there. They'd like to do a little more, but the reality is the charts prove out year over year that the repo losses are lower. Just, the math supports the strategy. So it's like,
it's a lot easier as a coach, consultant, whatever, to be like, okay, if you've got the numbers that prove that your business model, that this is okay, then
now I can go back to that dealer and say, let's look at what it looks like if you expand that just about 20%.
Yeah. Well, how about we do a test? Let's see what happens.
Sure.
Because that's the funny thing with buy here, pay here is you won't know really whether or not changing your model works for 3 years.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Think about, it's like if you think about the customer scoring model in terms of letter grades or whatever scoring method you want to use, then it really, like with this dealer, we can say, if they want to stick to letter grade A customers, then, they can obviously do that. But when we can go back to them with data and say, look at how this B customer has performed for other dealers, then you can start to show the math and say, maybe it's not something you need to be afraid of. It's like,
well, it depends on whether or not you're looking for growth. It really depends on what your objectives are with your business as well. Because,
it's one of the things I love about buy here, pay here. We have so much flexibility. It is. I've always said that. And when I invite people into the buy here, pay, I just say it's one of the things about we got people stepping out of franchise business, and they're used to having all these rules and this box they have to operate within. And when you step over into buy here, pay here, you have all this flexibility.
Yeah. That can be really scary for some people that like boxes.
Yeah, I suppose. You still got compliance stuff to obviously deal with. You got to be compliant and whatever. But it's like we have a lot of flexibility to do business the way we want to do business.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that the moral of the story today, as far around this subject, is make sure that if you're going to change a business model. Make sure that decision is not based on opinion, that it's based on something bigger than opinion, because everyone's got an opinion out there. And sometimes people are really, really happy to give their opinion, but their opinion may not be, it may not be valid, or it may not work with you or whatever. So yeah.
We should wrap up then.
Okay.
I want to just remind all of our listeners to, regardless of your religious practices, to enjoy the Easter weekend. Yeah. And hope you have a good time.
One thing I love about Easter is it is a worldwide, or at least Northern Hemisphere for us, ushering in of spring, which, all the new stuff and the closing of a season. So I just really enjoy that.
It's funny how we talk about aromas that are, trigger memory. I still, when I smell vinegar, I think about making the Easter egg as a kid. I'm like, I don't like that smell,
I have to tell him when I'm using vinegar so he stays out of the room. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy your family, friends, if you're planning on doing that. And then we will see you on Monday. Thanks so much for joining us today.
We'll
talk to you later.